The Last Ride, a tale of betrayal and brotherhood, written by Reuben White. Chapter 1, Shadows of Quicksilver. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the dusty streets of Quicksilver. It was a town built on dreams and dust, where fortunes were won and lost with the turn of a card, and secrets were buried as deep as the mines that once brought prosperity to its people. In the heart of Quicksilver stood the grand facade of Montgomery Bank, a testament to the wealth and power of its owner, Langston Theodore Montgomery. Tall and imposing, with a face weathered by years of hard living and harder choices, Langston cut a striking figure as he strode through the streets, his sombrero pulled low over his brow. But despite his outward success, Langston carried with him the weight of a past shrouded in darkness. He was a man with secrets, buried deeper than the silver that once flowed through the veins of the town, and he wore them like a cloak, shielding himself from prying eyes and wagging tongues. As Langston made his way through the bustling streets, a hushed murmur followed in his wake, whispers of scandal and intrigue that lingered like the smoke from a spent cigar. For in Quicksilver, where everyone knew everyone else's business, there were whispers of a brother long thought lost to the sands of time. Luther, they called him, the other half of Langston's soul, the mirror image of a man whose shadow loomed large over the town. A man as different from Langston as night from day, with a past as dark and twisted as the mines that scarred the landscape. And now, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the town in a golden glow, Luther returned to Quicksilver, a lone figure silhouetted against the fading light. His face was weathered and worn, etched with the lines of 1,000 miles traveled and 1,000 sins committed. The tension between the brothers crackled in the air like static electricity, a silent storm brewing on the horizon. For in Quicksilver, where fortunes were won and lost with the turn of a card, the greatest gamble of all was yet to come. Chapter 2, The Saloon Showdown. The air inside the Quicksilver saloon was thick with the scent of whiskey and sweat, a haze of smoke hanging lazily in the dim light. Langston Theodore Montgomery stood at the bar, his back straight and his gaze fixed on the dusty mirror behind the bartender. His sombrero sat low on his brow, casting a shadow over his steely eyes. In the corner of the room, a lone figure sat shrouded in darkness, a silhouette against the flickering light of the lanterns. Luther, Langston's long-lost brother, watched his twin with a mixture of resentment and longing, his eyes burning with a fire that had been smoldering for years. As Langston sipped his whiskey, Luther emerged from the shadows, his boots echoing on the creaky floorboards like the toll of a funeral bell. The tension in the room was palpable, a silent storm gathering force with each passing moment. Langston. Luther's voice was a low rumble, like distant thunder on the horizon. We need to talk. Langston turned to face his brother, his expression unreadable. What is it, Luther? I have business to attend to. Luther's eyes narrowed, the lines of his face deepening with anger. Don't play coy with me, brother. You know why I'm here. Langston's jaw clenched, his fingers tightening around the glass in his hand. I have nothing to say to you, Luther. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them. Luther's voice rose with each word, his anger bubbling to the surface like a volcano on the verge of eruption. You think you can just walk away from me, Langston? You think you can leave me behind like yesterday's trash? Langston slammed his glass down on the bar, the sound echoing through the saloon like a gunshot. I did what I had to do to survive, Luther. I built this life with my own 2 hands, and I won't let you tear it down. The tension between the brothers was like a taut rope, stretched to its breaking point with no relief in sight. They stood at odds with each other, their past grievances and bitter feelings boiling over into open hostility. And as the saloon door swung shut behind them, the stage was set for a showdown that would shake the very foundations of Quicksilver. Chapter 3, Echoes of the Past. As the dust settled in the wake of the confrontation at the saloon, Langston found himself haunted by memories of a time long past. He retreated to the solitude of his office, the grandeur of Montgomery Bank offering little solace in the face of the storm raging inside him. With a heavy sigh, Langston sank into the plush leather chair behind his desk, the weight of his past bearing down on him like a leaden cloak. He closed his eyes, allowing the memories to wash over him like a tidal wave of emotion. In the darkness behind his eyelids, Langston saw flashes of a childhood long forgotten, a time when he and Luther had been inseparable, bound together by blood and a bond stronger than steel. They had been two halves of a whole, their laughter ringing through the air like the chime of church bells on a Sunday morning. But as the years passed, their paths had diverged, leading them down separate roads fraught with hardship and heartache. Langston's rise to success had been swift and relentless, fueled by ambition and a thirst for power. He had clawed his way to the top, leaving a trail of broken dreams and shattered lives in his wake. Luther, on the other hand, had been left behind, a forgotten relic of a past that no longer held any meaning. He had drifted from town to town, a ghost haunting the fringes of society, his dreams as faded and worn as the clothes on his back. The root causes of their animosity and bitterness lay buried in the depths of their shared history, tangled like the roots of an ancient oak tree. Langston had always been the favored son, the golden child destined for greatness, while Luther had been cast aside like yesterday's news. But as Langston reflected on the events that had led them to this moment, he realized that their past was as much a part of their present as the air they breathed. The choices they had made, the sins they had committed, all came rushing back to him with a force that threatened to consume him whole. And as the memories faded into the darkness, Langston knew that the only way to confront the demons of his past was to face them head-on, to confront the brother he had long thought lost to the sands of time. For in Quicksilver, where fortunes were won and lost with the turn of a card, the greatest gamble of all was yet to come. Chapter 4. Stirrings of Unrest. Word of Luther's return spread through the town like wildfire, igniting a spark of unrest that smoldered beneath the surface like a hidden vein of gold. Whispers of his arrival echoed through the streets of Quicksilver, stirring up emotions long buried beneath layers of dust and deceit. In the grand halls of Montgomery Bank, Langston paced back and forth, his mind racing with thoughts of his long-lost brother. He knew that Luther's return spelled trouble, a storm brewing on the horizon that threatened to wash away everything he had worked so hard to build. But try as he might, Langston could not shake the feeling of unease that gnawed at his insides like a hungry coyote. Luther's presence loomed over the town like a dark cloud, casting a pall over the once bustling streets. Meanwhile, Luther wasted no time in making his presence known, his gravelly voice ringing out through the saloons and gambling dens like a clarion call to arms. He rallied support from those who felt wronged by Langston's iron-fisted rule, promising them justice and redemption in exchange for their loyalty. And as the days turned to weeks, the tension between the brothers reached a fever pitch, the air crackling with the promise of violence. Both Langston and Luther gathered allies to their cause, marshaling their forces for the inevitable confrontation that loomed on the horizon. But amidst the chaos and confusion, secrets from the past began to surface, like ghosts rising from the grave to exact their revenge. Skeletons long buried in the closet of Langston's conscience came tumbling out into the light, threatening to expose the truth behind the facade of respectability he had worked so hard to maintain. The town of Quicksilver became a powder keg waiting to explode, its streets teeming with restless souls torn between loyalty to one brother or the other. Sides were chosen, lines drawn in the sand, as the stage was set for a showdown that would shake the very foundations of the town to its core. Chapter 5. Showdown at high noon. The sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty streets of Quicksilver, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the barren landscape. The town lay silent, as if holding its breath in anticipation of the inevitable clash that loomed on the horizon. At the heart of the town, Langston and Luther stood facing each other, their eyes locked in a deadly gaze, the air between them thick with tension. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the culmination of years of bitterness and betrayal. A showdown that would determine the fate of Quicksilver and the souls of its people. Emotions ran high as the brothers squared off, each determined to emerge victorious and lay claim to what they believed was rightfully theirs. For Langston, it was the legacy of success and power he had worked so hard to build. For Luther, it was the chance to reclaim his lost dignity and pride, to prove once and for all that he was more than just a shadow cast by his brother's brilliance. As the townsfolk gathered around, their faces drawn and weary from the weight of the impending conflict, the brothers prepared to do battle. Guns were drawn, fingers poised on triggers, as the tension reached its breaking point. But just as it seemed that bloodshed was inevitable, a voice rang out through the silence, cutting through the tension like a knife. It was Sarah, the daughter of the town sheriff, her eyes wide with fear and desperation as she stepped forward to stand between the brothers. "Stop," she cried, her voice trembling with emotion. "This feud has gone on long enough. It's time to put an end to the bloodshed and find a way to coexist peacefully." For a moment, time seemed to stand still as Langston and Luther stared at each other, their guns lowered, their resolve wavering. In that moment of clarity, they saw reflected in each other's eyes the pain and suffering they had caused, the lives they had destroyed in their relentless pursuit of power and pride. And as the truth of their shared humanity washed over them like a cool breeze on a hot summer's day, the brothers made a silent pact to lay down their arms and seek forgiveness for the sins of their past. For in the end, it was not victory or defeat that mattered, but the bonds of brotherhood that had endured through the darkest of times. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the town in a golden glow, Langston and Luther embraced, their hearts heavy with the weight of the past but hopeful for a brighter future. And as they turned to face the gathered crowd, the people of Quicksilver cheered, their voices rising in a chorus of hope and renewal. For in that moment, the town of Quicksilver was reborn, its scars healed and its spirit renewed, all thanks to the power of forgiveness and the enduring strength of brotherhood. Chapter 6. Rebirth of Quicksilver. In the aftermath of the climactic showdown, Quicksilver lay quiet, its streets empty save for the gentle rustle of tumbleweeds drifting lazily in the breeze. The once bustling town now stood as a somber reminder of the toll the conflict had taken on its people, its buildings scarred and battered, its spirit bruised but not broken. But amidst the rubble and ruins, a sense of hope began to take root, like a delicate flower pushing its way through cracks in the pavement. For in the hearts of the townsfolk, there burned a flicker of optimism, a belief that from the ashes of destruction, something beautiful could still emerge. Langston and Luther, once bitter enemies locked in a deadly struggle for power and pride, now stood side by side, their differences set aside in the face of a greater truth. They had come to terms with their past, found closure in the forgiveness of each other's sins, and embraced the bond of brotherhood that had been forged in the crucible of conflict. Together, they vowed to rebuild Quicksilver, to mend the wounds of the past and usher in a new era of peace and prosperity. With the help of the townsfolk, they set to work repairing the damage wrought by years of animosity and division, laying the foundation for a brighter future. But even as they worked to heal the physical scars of the town, Langston and Luther knew that some wounds ran deeper than mortar and stone. The scars of the conflict would linger, a constant reminder of the pain and suffering that had torn Quicksilver apart. Yet despite the lingering shadows of the past, the people of Quicksilver refused to be defined by their pain. They embraced the themes of betrayal, brotherhood, and redemption that had played out in their midst, using them as a catalyst for growth and change. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the town in a warm glow, the people of Quicksilver gathered together, united in their determination to rebuild and move forward. For they knew that while the scars of the conflict would remain, they would serve as a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of hope. Chapter 7. Echoes of the past, whispers of the future. In the quiet moments that followed the rebuilding of Quicksilver, Langston Theodore Montgomery stood at the window of his grand office, gazing out at the town below. The streets were once again alive with the hustle and bustle of everyday life, the scars of the conflict fading into the background like a distant memory. But for Langston, the events that had transpired would forever be etched in his mind, a constant reminder of the choices he had made and the paths he had chosen. He reflected on the legacy of the brothers, the tale of Langston and Luther becoming part of the town's folklore, passed down through generations like a cherished heirloom. As the years passed, the story of their conflict would be retold time and time again, each telling adding new layers of meaning and depth to the tale. And though the specifics of their struggle may fade with time, the lessons learned would endure, a testament to the enduring power of family and forgiveness. For in the end, it was not the triumphs or the defeats that defined Langston and Luther, but the strength of their bond and the resilience of their spirit. They had faced their demons and emerged stronger for it, their legacy a testament to the indomitable human spirit and the enduring power of hope. And as Langston watched the sun dip below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the town of Quicksilver, he felt a sense of closure wash over him like a gentle tide. The town would forever be marked by the events of the last ride, a tale of betrayal and brotherhood. But it was a mark of strength and resilience, a reminder of the enduring power of the human spirit to overcome even the darkest of days. With a smile on his lips and a sense of peace in his heart, Langston turned away from the window, ready to embrace whatever the future held. For in the end, he knew that no matter what trials lay ahead, he would face them with the strength and courage that had carried him through the darkest of times. And as he stepped out into the bustling streets of Quicksilver, surrounded by the sounds of laughter and life, he knew that the town would endure, its spirit unbroken by the trials of the past. For in Quicksilver, where the sun burned like a rattlesnake's eye, and the dust of the desert whispered secrets in the wind, anything was possible. And as long as there were dreams to chase and hearts to mend, the legacy of Langston and Luther would live on, a beacon of hope in a world filled with darkness. If you are enjoying adventure in the Wild West, feel free to hit the subscribe button for future posts.